Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Runeterra Academy. So, in this video, we're going to be talking about mid-range decks. Mid-range decks are probably my personal favorite of the four deck types. I just like their versatility and their flexibility. Let's see, so I think for mid-range decks, let's go ahead and use a pretty standard Ash Sajani deck, or sometimes it's referred to as Frostbite. This is kind of like the mid-range deck at the moment. It's at the top of a lot of tier lists, and rightfully so. It's a very strong deck. It was showing some, well, not just some, it was showing a lot of success at the end of last patch, and then it didn't get hit at all during the patch. Not only that, but the results of the card changes during the patch kind of favored a more mid-range meta. Hence, we have this deck being one of the more optimal ones at the moment. So the idea of this deck in particular is you want to try to level Ash as quickly as possible. Ash's flipped ability is insanely good, especially because we have a lot of ways to freeze multiple units. And that's often how we kill them, is just by attacking with a bunch of units and freezing their stuff and they can't block. So in order to kind of assist with that as far as freezing goes, we've got Brittle Steel, Iceveil Archer, Ash herself obviously does a lot. Harsh Winds freezes two things, which is very nice. Sajani can freeze things as well. Sajani is just an excellent mid-range card. Sajani, I kind of like to refer to her as the mid-range queen. This is, take the probably out of it, this is just the best mid-range card in the game. That doesn't mean that Sajani decks are always the best mid-range decks. That doesn't mean every mid-range deck has to be Freljord with Sajani. But if you're trying to play mid-range and you're not using Sajani, you should have a good reason for it. There are reasons. They do exist. So the way that mid-range plays within the four different deck archetypes, we've got, as I've beaten to your head by this point, aggro, mid-range, control, and combo. So mid-range is favored against aggro, mostly because we have bigger units than them and we can control their board down pretty effectively, while at the same time still keeping pace with them in the early game. So we have stuff like Omen Hawk to kind of block early. Iceveil Archer can freeze their early units and also effectively block them. A Trifarian Glory Seeker can be used to take out some particularly nasty units. Evers and Trapper is a decent body, but the 1 mana 5/5 Yeti is very, very good for controlling non-aggro decks. Plus, I mean, obviously this deck in particular has a lot of freeze, so it's going to be particularly good against aggro. This deck is a lot of the reason why there aren't more aggro decks that are seeing more success. There are some, though. So against other mid-range decks, basically, you kind of... It's kind of one of the... What am I trying to say here? It's kind of one of the most toss-up how the matchup plays out among any of the matchup interactions is mid-range versus mid-range. It's very dependent on what your opening hand is like versus what your opponent's opening hand is like. If your opponent opens very aggressively and you don't, you want to try to like control them down, kind of play like you're playing against an aggro deck. Conversely, if you open very aggressively, then you want to play like you're the aggro deck and try to just outpace your opponent, who will probably be trying to control you. This is the case in not just mid-range versus mid-range, but against almost any matchup. It's and this is gonna sound kind of confusing because I'm still gonna use the phrases aggro and control, but in a matchup as opposed to general deck archetypes, usually one deck is the aggro deck and one deck is the control deck. And what I mean by that is one deck is going to draw more aggressively than the other. The deck that draws more aggressively is going to try to rush the opponent down. The deck that draws less aggressively is going to want to try to mitigate their opponent's threats and control their board down. So let's see what else is there. Mid-range versus control. This is probably mid-range's worst matchup because we have a harder time rushing them down with aggro, and aggro also by itself often has a hard time rushing down control. But our deck is less optimized to do that, so we can't even do it as efficiently. And they have bigger threats than us in the late game, so That's why that's a bad matchup for us. Combo, as I mentioned in the last video, combo versus mid-range is closer to 50-50. It's more matchup dependent and less archetype, uh, less reliant on the overall archetypes, rather. But generally, you want to try to kill them before they can get their combo off. So you generally want to play more aggressive if you're playing the mid-range deck against the combo deck. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into... I guess I should talk about a couple more individual card choices. Kato the Arm is a good finisher. It's particularly good with Reckless Trifarian, which, even though this can't block, is still very good, not only if you get Overwhelm, but also with Trifarian Assessor. Trifarian Assessor is our catch-up mechanic if we're running low on cards. We can just play this. You really want to be trying to draw like minimum 2 cards with Assessor, ideally 3 or more, which isn't that hard to do, especially if this gets buffed by Omen Hawk. And again, we're just really focused on trying to flip Ash, and that's pretty much it. So let's go ahead and get into the game. Maybe 2, if we have time, as always. Ooh, okay, so Elise, Darius. This is probably going to be a harrowing deck, which means it's an aggro deck. Basically, the way harrowing decks work is they're based on the card The Harrowing, and they're going to play out a lot of their aggressive stuff, and they're going to be more prone to letting it die than other aggro decks, because they're going to try to get a big harrowing for like 7 minions and try to kill us on that turn. That said, let's put back Reckoning. It's too expensive. Trifarian Assessor, we don't need this early. We'll keep Iceveil Archer as a good early freeze and just good against aggro. Culling Strike would be good against Elise. We can keep it. So in theory, we are favored here. But the Harrowing is a bit of a scary card. The Harrowing is particularly, like, it kind of punishes us for trading their minions down, which is what we want to be doing here. It kind of punishes for that. Well, they didn't have a very aggressive start, did they? They just let me get 5 free damage in there. That's interesting. I was not expecting that attack to go through, but... I guess this could be a weird... But with Darius, like, Darius is always an aggro card. And the fact that Elise is here definitely supports that. Like, Shadow Isles is one of the more... is one of the regions that has a lot of range. Like, there can be aggressive Shadow Isles decks, and there can be very controlly Shadow Isles decks. This stun is fine. We will... Let's play the Avarosan Trapper. And I'll take the block here, if they decide to attack. Yeah, Shadow Isles represents a large range of archetypes, but Elise is pretty much is always aggressive. Not even pretty much, is always aggressive. Darius is always aggressive too. Opponent must have just had a really bad start. Like, what could they even... If they're supposed to be an aggro deck, would they have, like, multiple Harrowings, 3+ cost minions, a few ones they have, maybe some fast answers they didn't want to use yet? But even, like, I was so surprised this lived because it only had 1 health. Shadow Isles has a lot of way to just deal 1 damage, and they just took the 5. It's very surprising. So we'll start with the Yeti here. See what they do. Maybe throw out an Archer. Maybe just swing and keep Culling Strike up. So that Grasp came from the left, so they just drew it. Yeah, that's fine. And yeah, let's just go ahead and Iceveil Archer here. Lets us get in a lot of damage. That's like one of the reasons this deck is so good, is because you'll freeze their stuff. They won't want to block with it because they won't be able to kill your unit back. But if they don't, that just means they're getting in a lot of damage. So like in situations like this, like they have the option, like, yeah, do I want to chump and prevent damage, lose my unit for nothing, or do I want to just take the damage? Both situations are favorable for us, which is why a lot of the reasons why this deck is so good. And honestly, this deck was slept on for a good bit, in my opinion. I started playing this deck pretty close to when I first started playing back in May, and even then I noticed it was a pretty decent deck. Okay, so this is more of a dedicated spider aggro deck. Interesting. So they might not have the harrowing here. This might just be spider aggro. Which I don't think spider aggro is that great of a deck. It's not like the worst, but you can do better. I'll play Kato the Arm here. Maybe play Trifarian Assessor next turn. I don't really see a need to Culling Strike. And Kato the Arm will still let us leave Brittle Steel up as well. Kato the Arm is going to be really good with this Yeti next turn. Wow, the no attacks, that's totally fine. It's a little surprising. I guess it's not that surprising, but... let's see. Sajani, we don't need to Sajani here, so I think I'm going to play Trifarian Assessor and draw 2 cards with it.
Only the finest serve.
Yeah, seems fine. It's a Prankster deck. Prankster with Nox, that's interesting. So they can really only block with spiders. So we can play an Omen Hawk here. Well, I don't want them to get out like another Prankster or something, so we should probably just attack now. The Omen Hawk's attacking... The Omen Hawk's attack doesn't make a lot of difference here. This becomes an 8-5 with Overwhelm. They might just be dead here. There's a decent chance they're just dead. What you got? Yeah, they had to block with the Prankster. I actually didn't realize this could block. Interesting. Oh, I'm thinking of Monkey Idol that has 0 attack and can't block. But I'm actually just gonna Culling Strike the Prankster. So that I don't take the unnecessary damage. It's pretty, like... It's not necessary at all. We're still at 20. Going to 17 would not be a big deal, but... It's like... What else am I gonna do this turn? Play Omen Hawk? I mean, I still can. I'm not really gonna do much else this turn anyway, so... No reason not to do it. I was wondering if that was going to be the Harrowing. No, it's another Brood Awakening. Which I'm fine with. It's pretty irrelevant. Actually, I'm going to play my Kindly Tavern Keeper over my Hawk and heal my Kato here. Or should I heal... These all took 2 damage? Which of these do I want the most? It's definitely Kato. This definitely isn't necessary to keep Kato alive. Like, we could Brittle Steel if they try to attack into it. But this is just making sure that our Kato is going to be safe. Because, like I said, it's our most valuable unit here. It's probably, hopefully, going to win us the game next turn.
I'll do better this time.
So here, let's go, like...
Let's
Block.
talk about your dad.
Block. Culling. There's no need to Culling that. Let's Brittle Steel it. And I guess we can... Whatever, let's take the damage. It doesn't matter. We're gonna win next turn. I don't really see how they can avoid taking a lot of damage from Kato giving something like our Yeti Overwhelm here. Noxian Fervor, I guess. But we're still attacking with so many different things. We only have to deal 2 more damage. Unless there's like an AoE coming right here. Oh, Withering Wail? That could happen right now. It'd be weird for Withering Wail to be in this deck. Withering Wail is a control card. But it would wreck us here. It wouldn't wreck us. If they are playing Grasp, though, that's weird that there's Grasp in this aggro deck. This is still lethal, though, so we'll just click OK. Huh, so that was an interesting deck. It seemed like a pretty typical Spider aggro, except for the Grasps. You don't usually see that card in aggro, because it's a slow card. It was probably too slow for them to play with their Synergy, which I think that turn that they grasped kind of awkwardly, I think that was the turn they lost, honestly. We got a Champion Capsule. We'll play one more game and then we'll crack that open for fun at the end of the video. Let's see what kind of trouble we can get into next. TF Teemo. Interesting. So that's going to be a combo deck for sure. I wonder if they're going to have a lot of symmetrical draw effects to level TF and also draw me into mushrooms. So, against this kind of deck, I don't need Brittle Steel as much. I don't want the Assessors. Elixir of Iron is worth considering keeping, especially against P and Z when they have stuff like Mystic Shot and Get Excited. I would prefer to have at least one other unit in my hand if I'm going to keep Elixir of Iron, though. It's kind of risky to keep by itself, because if I draw 3 cards like this, like that's Elixir of Iron's going to be dead. So we'll put it back. But yeah, if I'd even had like an Omen Hawk or something, I would have kept the Elixir of Iron. Just one other play. Or one play in general. Yeah, mid-range mulligans is similar to aggro in that you're looking for a good turn 1, turn 2, turn 3 play. In that order. Don't just keep a turn 3 play without a turn 1 or 2. I would prioritize turn 1, then turn 2, then turn 3 most of the time. But there are cases in mulliganing for mid-range where you can keep more expensive stuff if you think it's going to be good in that matchup. And as long as it's not like a matchup where you want to be super aggressive. What are they thinking about? Oh, parlay. Okay, that's fine. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I don't think I've ever played against a Team LTF deck. I'm sure I have, actually. I'm just not thinking of it. I'm just trying to think, like, what inherent synergies... Like, why Teemo with TF? That's what I'm trying to figure out right now.
Joke debate.
We'll figure... I guess we'll see. Or maybe we won't. Oh, come on. Man, I'm trying to show actual games here. I was worried this would happen. I'm surprised it hasn't happened more often. It's the drawback of playing a normal when we're trying to get actual practice. It's people who just surrender. We'll go into another game. Because that was... dumb. They probably just saw the level... Their hand must have not been that great. Here's a Fizz deck. Interesting. So this is going to be a combo deck. Fizz usually means combo. They're usually trying to just get a really big Fizz. The fact that it's Freljord definitely supports that. Actually, I think this might be the Fizz combo deck where, like, you play a bunch of the Freljord deck buffs. And you can get Fizz up to, like, a 17, 16 or something, some crazy stuff like that. I'll keep Archer plus Elixir. See, the thing is, Archer's not going to be super great against this deck because they play super few minions because they're trying to buff exactly Fizz. Wow, this hand's terrible. Wow, this hand's awful. It's like our entire top end of our deck. They played Fizz turn 1? They must have... I don't know. I guess I don't know this deck very well, so maybe that's right. I hate Fizz for the record. I mean, I know I'm not alone in that, but I think Fizz is more annoying than Teemo. I know. Interesting. I don't know why they played that post-combat. Well, I do know they were saving it in case I had a combat trick. I'll just heal myself for 3. I'll attack. This trade is obviously perfectly fine with me. And we'll pass. Ooh, there's Icefield Archer. That's good. Stop all enemy spells and skills targeting me. Okay. So if we try to Icefield this, they'll probably respond with a spell. That's fine if they do, though. Kind of thinking about maybe Harsh Winzing right now. To not take 4, to give Ash a level. Or I could just play Ash after this attack. Let's just do that.
I will unite the Freljord.
That's totally fine. That doesn't do anything here. Why? What? That doesn't make any sense at all. That doesn't even... I mean, yeah, it levels your fizz, but that just does not seem right to me. Oh, okay, see, now it makes more sense. Gotcha.
Who's gonna close up?
That's too bad we didn't have like Elixir of Iron there. Oh well. Let's just gain 3 more health.
On in.
Healing against combo decks like this is super good. This one it might not matter because they'll probably just do a lot of damage to me at once. Pocket aces, huh? Interesting. Yeah, I'll just frostbite that. Attack for 6. I'm a little quiet here because I'm trying to figure out how this deck is gonna work. like I said, I have very little experience against these Fizz decks, so I'm trying to figure out like at what point I should be scared of like just outright dying. Ooh, I guess this is that point, huh? Jeez, Battle Fury. Yeah. Yeah, let's frostbite it. The nice thing about Harsh Winds as well is that it's burst speed freeze. Do I do this? Nah, no. I'll just bank my spell mana. Yeah, that card's definitely useless now, the Reckoning. So here's the thing. I'd like to Sajani, but they're probably going to play a spell. I guess it's fine if they do, right? Alternatively, I could Icefield plus Kato. That actually sounds better. Let's do that.
Locked and ready. What time is it?
Actually, I haven't heard that line. That's pretty funny, Kato Clock. I usually play with the sound off, honestly. I turn the sound effects off and then I listen to music. That helps me concentrate better, I find. Well, what's going on here? Are you dead? Am I dead? Oh, I could have actually... You know what? There's a thought to Reckoning with the freeze here. I didn't even think about that. Icefield Archer and then Reckoning. It would have wiped my own board. But it would have killed their Fizz. That was actually worth... Well, but then they could have... This doesn't target though, does it? Because it just kills all units with 4 or less power. I think I could have killed this Fizz with the Reckoning. But I think this actually ends up being the right play. Because like now they have to jump here, or yeah, they just surrender here. So, okay. That seemed a little scary, but we ended up fine. So, I guess that's mid-range in a nutshell. I kind of just ran over my opponents though with this deck here. I don't feel like I got to show many mid-range aspects of it, but at the same time, let's glance at a couple other mid-range lists at the very least. We won't play games with them, but like let's see, there we go. I call it Pirates of the Pole, but this is a MF Sajani, Tempo Yoink is what this deck used to be called when it had more Yoink cards in it. And by Yoink I mean NAB stuff like Black Market Merchant, Pilfered Goods. After the Pilfered Goods nerf, I actually took the NAB package out except for Yordle Grifter because it's a good standalone card. But it might actually be right to play it again. But this is another really good example of a mid-range deck. As you can see, it's got a bunch of aggressive tools like Jagged Butcher. Buffing stuff with Omen Hawk is pretty good. It's got more controlling stuff too, like you've got the Hired Gun, you've got the Make It Rain. Ruthless Raider is a pretty good aggro card. Misfortune is kind of like board controlling and aggro in the same card. And so on and so forth. We've got Rex at the end, we've got Sajani because it's a mid-range deck. Razor Scale Hunter is kind of like a mini Sajani in some cases, plus it's got the Scout. Island Navigator is just a really good card in general. So this is also like this is what I would call more of like a standard mid-range deck. The Frostbite deck is a lot more specialized to the freeze. So I guess it's going to do it for this mid-range. Oh, right, we're going to open the champion capsule at the end. Yeah, let's go for it. See what we get. We got our third Vi. Interesting. I was kind of hoping for the third Teemo, but that's all good. So, yeah, I guess that about does it for this video. So thanks for watching. This is Xlex, signing out. Have a good day.